All right, welcome back, KSLU students, to this explainer. Today, we're tackling an absolute heavyweight topic under Muslim law. So settle down, open your notebooks, and pay absolute attention. What we're going over today is your master blueprint for scoring maximum marks on a guaranteed 16-mark university question. Explain the legitimacy of children and the Doctrine of Acknowledgement of Paternity. We are going to break this down step by step with strict academic rigor. Let's get started.
Here is our answer synopsis. 1. Introduction to child legitimacy. 2. Rules of legitimacy. 3. Rights of legitimate children. 4. Doctrine of paternity acknowledgement. 5. Landmark case laws. And 6. The perfect conclusion. Listen to me carefully here. You must write this exact synopsis on the very first page of your exam script. It instantly signals to the KSLU evaluator that your answer is impeccably structured and you know exactly what you're talking about.
Let's begin with our first major heading. On your answer script, write down 1. Introduction to child legitimacy. Place that clearly right in the center of your page. Here is the definition exactly as it must appear on your paper. Legitimate child. One born during a valid or Sahih marriage or within the legally recognized period after dissolution of marriage. Now, drop your pens for a second and just listen to the crux of this concept. That term Sahih is absolutely critical here. It literally means legally valid. When you write this in your exam, I want you to actively underline the word Sahih. Under Muslim law, legitimacy is entirely tethered to the validity of the marriage. It's the absolute bedrock of a child's legal status. Okay, move to your next heading. 2. Rules of legitimacy. I want you to write this heading in bold, capital letters on your sheet. Note the rules exactly as provided here. Point 1. A child born during valid marriage is presumed legitimate. Point 2. Minimum period of gestation, 6 lunar months from the marriage date. Point 3. Child born after dissolution of marriage, within prescribed period. So the really crucial point here, the one you must elaborate on for the evaluator, is the second rule, the 6th lunar months rule. Under Muslim law, if a child is born within 6 lunar months from the exact date of the marriage, the law generally does not presume legitimacy unless there is distinct evidence to prove otherwise. Emphasize to the evaluator that without evidence to the contrary, this gestational presumption rigidly holds. Now here's a brilliant, high-yield tactic to extract extra marks. Draw this exact comparison table on your answer script. We're looking at void or batil versus irregular or facet marriages. Look at the columns: marriage type, status of child, and inheritance rights. Row 1, void or batil, the status of the child is illegitimate. The child does not acquire inheritance rights from the father. Row 2, irregular or facet under Sunni law. The status of the child is legitimate, and the child acquires rights. A strict KSLU evaluator scanning your paper is going to see this table and immediately award you marks for your absolute conceptual clarity. It's a game changer. Let's see how this builds into the next section of your answer. Heading number 3, rights of legitimate children. Write it neatly. These are the 4 pillars of rights. 1, right of inheritance from both father and mother. 2, right to maintenance, which is the father's absolute legal obligation. 3, right to family status. And 4, right to guardianship and protection. Why does this matter? Well, legitimacy forms the foundation for these 4 vital legal rights under Muslim law. Without legitimacy, the legal umbilical cord connecting the child to the father's property, name, and protection is completely severed. Briefly dissect this for the examiner to show you understand the practical, real-world impact of the law. We now arrive at the second major part of this university question. Write this heading down with prominence. 4. Doctrine of Paternity Acknowledgement. Pay precise attention to this definition. Doctrine of Acknowledgement of Paternity, a principle where a man acknowledges a child as his own, conferring legitimacy when direct proof of marriage is absent. Students, you must keep in your mind and explicitly state in your exam that this doctrine operates only when direct proof of marriage is unavailable. It's not an adoption mechanism, no way. It is based entirely on the legal presumption that a lawful marriage actually existed between the parents, but the paperwork or witnesses are just missing. Next, we have the essentials of valid acknowledgement. 1, clear and unequivocal. 2, child not known as illegitimate. 3, possibility of legitimate birth. 4, adult child must accept. 5, acknowledgement by competent person.
I command you to present these as distinct numbered subheadings in your exam script. Guarantee clarity by writing a short, one-line explanation under each point. For instance, for point 3, explain that the age gap between the acknowledging father and the child must literally make a physical, legitimate birth possible. And this brilliantly illustrates the outcome. The effects of acknowledgement are 1. Establishes legitimacy, 2. Creates rights of inheritance, 3. Establishes parent-child relationship, and 4. Confers social status. Notice something here? I want to remind you how these effects exactly mirror the rights of a naturally legitimate child that we just discussed back in Section 3. The doctrine heals the legal gap, elevating the acknowledged child to the exact same pedestal as a child born with proven documentary evidence of a Sahih marriage. All right, we have now reached the showstopper section of your answer script. 5. Landmark case laws. Mark my words. No 16-mark answer in a KSLU exam is complete without dissecting specific case laws. This is where you separate yourselves from the average students.
Here is your first mandatory case law. Sadiq Hussein, the Hashim Ali, decided by the Privy Council. I explicitly instruct you to write this exact case name along with the court in a separate boxed format on your answer sheet. Draw a neat box around it with your pen to make it really pop off the page.
Note the exact verdict. Acknowledgement of paternity establishes legitimacy where legitimacy is uncertain, provided the child could have been born from a lawful union. Now let's do a deep breakdown of why this case matters. The brief background here involves a high-stakes dispute over inheritance, where the actual marriage couldn't be strictly proven with documents, but the father had continuously treated the child as his legitimate son. The ratio decidendi, the ruling established by the Privy Council, is that the doctrine of acknowledgement cures uncertainty. It's a remedy for doubt. However, it cannot cure an impossible union. Explain this logic clearly to your evaluator. If the parents could not have legally married in the first place, the doctrine totally fails.
Now introduce the second mandatory case law, Muhammad Aladad Khan versus Muhammad Ismail Khan. Again, underline this case name heavily. Capture the evaluator's attention immediately for those crucial extra marks.
Let's read the text. Verdict. Acknowledgement cannot legitimize a child whose illegitimacy is conclusively proved, but it may establish legitimacy where marriage is presumed. Let's pause and dissect this, because this is the most vital distinction you will write today. The facts of this case involved a dispute where one party tried to use acknowledgement to bypass proven illicit relations to secure property rights. The court ruled, absolutely not. Heavily contrast conclusively proved illegitimacy versus presumed marriage in your answer. If it is proven in court that the child is from an illicit relationship, meaning illegitimacy is conclusively proved, no amount of acknowledgement can make that child legitimate. The doctrine only works where a lawful marriage can be logically presumed. Highlighting this distinction is absolutely paramount for scoring full marks. Finally, wrap up your answer script with this heading. 6. The perfect conclusion. Do not let your 16-mark answer just fizzle out at the end. Finish with power. I'm going to dictate this exact concluding quote for you to memorize and write word for word. The doctrine of acknowledgement of paternity serves as an equitable principle that protects children. Muslim law seeks to preserve family status and safeguard the rights of children through this doctrine. By writing this, you are effectively tying the rigid legal rules back to the equitable protection of the child. It shows the evaluator you actually understand the protective spirit of the law. As we end this explainer, I leave you with this provocative question to think about. If direct proof is absent, how does this doctrine act as an equitable shield rather than just a rigid legal formality? I want you to ponder the true protective spirit of Muslim law beyond just passing your exams. It's really about safeguarding the vulnerable child from the social and legal stigma of illegitimacy. Master these concepts, follow this exact layout we went over today, and you will absolutely dominate your paper. Keep studying hard, KSLU.